Video game studios tend to fumble quite a bit. One great game is followed by something rushed, bloated, or just plain unwanted. But Atlus? They kinda don't miss. Or at least, rarely. Over the past couple of decades, they've quietly become one of the most consistent studios in the industry, and that doesn't happen by accident. While other teams try to reinvent themselves or chase trends, Atlus seems to always deliver a product combining strong gameplay, killer style, memorable music, and stories that just hit. So what's the secret? It's not just one thing. It's a combination of deep experience, iterative approach, and continuous experimentation, along with creative confidence that isn't ubiquitous elsewhere. So let's talk about how Atlus pulled this off, why they're not just surviving, but thriving as the rest of the industry seems to stumble. The first and maybe most important piece of this puzzle is experience. Atlus is stacked with veterans, not just in the sense of seniority, but in terms of vision. A lot of the people working there today are the same people who were there pre-Persona 3. We are talking about guys like Katsura Hashino, Shigenori Sojima, and Shoji Meguro, who have been the heart and soul of Atlus and have helped redefine the Persona series as an example. And what that creates is a studio that knows its IP. They're not rebooting franchises with entirely new teams. They're building a legacy that gives the games a kind of intangible authenticity. If you've been along for the ride long enough, you can feel the continuity from SMT 3 to 5, or from Persona 3 to 5. Atlus, much like Sega's RGG studio, famous for the Like a Dragon franchise, has mastered style. They have a known framework for their series they iterate on with each new entry. You can trace the evolution of the Persona or SMT series and watch as they refine mechanics, visuals, and tone, which seems to always surprise and delight their fans. Take Metaphor ReFantazio for example. It has the signature character design gameplay, with some tweaks, and a familiar art style of other Atlus entries. But it manages to introduce a new setting, and another soundtrack that blows away their audience. Shoji Meguro, the composer of the Persona series and Metaphor ReFantazio, managed to sufficiently make Metaphor distinctive from their other works. Take the battle theme for instance. A Buddhist monk chanting lyrics in Esperanto, and it is an absolute smash. Another key element of their design is for the most part, they do not get stuck in the mud on repeating something they did in a previous game. If something wasn't working, they tend to not repeat it. Well, kinda. Think of Tartarus with its 264 floors in Persona 3. Its analog, Mementos in Persona 5, is much more streamlined and navigable for players without being too cumbersome. Another great example is how Persona itself evolved. From a dungeon crawler to a solid JRPG structure with heavy life sim elements. A massive shift, and yet the core SMT DNA is still in there. Turn-based battles, demon negotiations, and themes centering around the divine and human psychology. It's an intelligent retooling where the firm takes what works and tweaks it, and creates something that feels like it's pushing the boundaries of being the signature for JRPG excellence. Does this remind you of a parallel industry? It reminds me of the 1970s car market, weirdly enough. American manufacturers were stale on products that entice customers, and in the post-war era, the Japanese companies were eager to come in. Well-known brands like Toyota mirror, in some way, the breakthrough success of a company like Atlus in the mid-2010s. Kaizen, or Toyota's continuous improvement philosophy, was their method to optimize processes via small incremental changes to raise the bar in quality, efficiency, and productivity. They slowly managed to iterate their vehicles and flood the US car market with a superior product. From my perspective, continuous improvement is deeply rooted in elements of the Japanese culture, and Atlus is no exception. When Western publishers in the 2010s pivoted away from making excellent games to a focus instead on monetization strategies, the video game industry demonstrated a phenomenal parallel to what happened with cars in the 1970s. Somehow, a game like Persona 5 in 2016, that was previously a niche series on platforms like the PS2 and Vita, became a breakthrough hit. Fast forward to 2024, and Metaphor ReFantazio is highlighted on the Game Awards stage when previous Atlus games were relegated to word of mouth on forums. It sold 1 million copies by launch day. Shin Megami Tensei 5, a title that doesn't just roll off the mouth for most Americans, along with the Vengeance re-release, sold over 2 million copies. This commercial performance is stellar, but I'd be remiss to leave out some of how they innovate beyond just iteration of their well-known IP. More niche projects like Tokyo Mirage Sessions show Atlus experimenting with structure and presentation while still keeping their core identity alive. That's the rabbit in the hat. You can always recognize the Atlus DNA via calling cards, but no two games feel exactly the same. I'd like to mention another reason why Atlus stays winning. They respect the fans, and not in the performative, we're listening to you kind of way, in the actual design philosophy of them. Now, I am cognizant that they have nickel and diming tactics, like not including the DLC with Persona 3 Reload, along with releasing signature versions of their games years later. I wish that, for example, we just got Persona 5 Royal on day one and not years later, but I appreciate the effort that goes into mastering those games. Perturbations aside, Atlus assumes their audience is smart. There's a lot of talking, too much sometimes, but typically they don't over-explain everything or water down the game's systems. Whether it's negotiating with demons or managing your calendar as you see fit, they just let you figure it out. There's no battle pass, no live service gimmick, no soulless open world junk food. Instead, they double down on a tightly designed, content-rich experience that feels finished at launch. That loyalty is retained because players know what they're getting with an Atlus experience. Even if the wait between new games in a series is long, it's usually worth it. Sorry, except you Soul Hackers fans. 2 wasn't that bad though. And speaking of time, Atlus takes theirs. Persona 5 was delayed multiple times, but when it finally dropped, it felt like a masterpiece, not patched together or compromised. While other studios release a mess with an empty promise to quote-unquote fix it later, Atlus is usually delivering something that feels fully thought out. And when they do go back to a game, it's not just content bloat, it's genuine refinement. They don't chase hype cycles, instead quality. And in the long run, that's what sticks. The last thing I'd like to touch on in conjunction with their attempt to push boundaries is the idea of mastery of their craft. Atlus's core teams are not going to make a first-person shooter or Metroidvania. They're going to continue making their bread and butter, JRPGs. So what exactly are they the master of? Well, I'll use examples that are sort of a small detail for most games, but many people notice with their entries. User interface. The menu in Persona games are so delightful to see, straightforward but perfectly stylized. I think of Persona 4 Golden. The sound when you maneuver on the menu, and even in Persona 5, just how great it looks and feels to use. There's not just an attention to detail, there's a persistent refinement to make the best damn JRPG menu. It's not just the collective product being good, it's about excellence in all things, even looking at the sound settings. So, how does Atlus stay consistent? It's not luck, it's not magic. It's a result of creative leadership, smart iteration, meaningful evolution, and a refusal to compromise on the things that actually matter. They've built a studio where the people making the games are the same ones who helped define them, where experimentation is encouraged but always grounded in a clear identity and vision, but where the audience is always treated with respect. Atlus isn't perfect, but they're steady-handed, and in a time where that's more rare than ever, it's worth celebrating. So what do all of you out there think? Has Atlus been pretty consistent like I'm saying here, or have they been on a decline? I see, for example, some folks out there that say Shin Megami Tensei 5 was a massive step down from previous games in the series, particularly 4 on the 3DS, but others seem to just be getting into their games. If you agree, let me know down in the comments or otherwise. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like and sticking around for more videos like this. Thanks!